Okay, so folks, we're gonna call the meeting to order at somewhere between 7 and 7:01. We do have a quorum. We actually have 9 people, plus a non-voting board member, and Doug, former voting board member. So in this room, we have myself, we have Vice Chair, the Honorable Representative Emily Long. We have the Honorable Al Clausen, our clerk. We have Joe Winrich.
Hey, I'm not honorable?
No, you are an honorable.
You are
Joe.
for me.
Okay.
And on TV, we have, if you can see, we have Crystal Corville that was appointed to take member Leanne Gilson's spot on the West River Group. We have Sarah Webb, who is taking Peter Broussard's spot on the West River Group. We have Rachel Boyden and Dan MacArthur, the very honorable Marlboro people. And we have Allison Young, the famous, infamous Stratton Board Chair.
Kate just joined too.
And who?
Kate.
Oh, and Kate Rideout, the vice chair at West River. Thank you, Kate. And Kate always brings a kid. And if you have a really cute puppy, she may trade on some nights. And then we also have from Windham Central on TV, we have Meredith taking our minutes for us. We have our special ed coordinator extraordinaire person, oh my gosh, Stephanie Beatty. And then we have our, I don't see who we got, I can't
Jen.
read. Oh, Jen's here, thank you, Jen.
Director.
And we have Dwight from the West River, so we actually got a really good turnout tonight, guys. And then we also have our business manager extraordinaire for the next year or so. So she leaves us, sadly.
It's really cool.
I know.
Everyone's
Get used to people, I don't like it when they leave, but,
Well, especially
Heidi
when they're
Russ.
good.
yeah, and you're
I'm
you're
the assistant business manager.
for, yep, so Heidi, thank you for coming.
Imparting all my knowledge in her.
I think we got everybody covered. Oh, and our superintendent, Bob, how could I forget him?
Go figure.
And our TV guy, wave to the TV guy, everybody.
Oh, yay, it's Natasha.
Who's this?
Natasha, right? Is that her?
Oh, yeah.
Natasha?
Natasha,
Natasha.
Bruce Andrews from Marlboro.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So can you just text that to Meredith?
Yeah, I will. I'm trying to get, I do have another board member who's trying to get on from Windham who is having trouble with the Zoom, so
Okay,
Rory Gross.
but they're not a voting member because we don't.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll try to get her on.
Okay, so we've got a really good turnout tonight, so I'm gonna go and start on the agenda. And the agenda is called to order. We reviewed everybody here, kind of did introductions. Are there any revisions or changes to the agenda that anybody has? And those of you on TV land, if you can just kind of like holler out, because I can't really see you, my back is to y'all. The TV guy's gonna have to tell me if somebody wants to speak. Bob,
Yeah, I'll tell
Bob's
you.
looking at it on his computer.
He's good.
You guys all set here?
Yeah. Oh, so Rich, you have Rory, who has joined us, who is a Windham vice chair.
Yep.
Has joined.
Hello.
Hey Rory, how are you?
Good, how are you? Thanks for letting me in.
You're welcome. Bob did it. Bob does everything.
Thank you, Bob. He sure does.
If you want to come up here and join us
Yeah.
at this table, you're
should.
more than welcome to.
There's
And
papers over there too, Natasha.
So we're going to start, folks. Is there anybody out there has any revisions or any changes to the agenda? Any of the board members? I don't see anybody. So I need to approve, or we need to approve the minutes of the October 25th, 2023 meeting. Seems so long ago.
So moved.
Okay, Al made a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Emily? Okay, and Joe Winrich seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Seems to be all those ayes. Are there any nays? Are there any abstentions? It appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is a unanimous decision in the affirmative, the minutes are passed. Next item, the WCSU budget first draft review and possible action for approval. So before we start, I just want to take a couple minutes. We started several years ago, I believe when Lori first started, we do a couple steps in a process. This year we got off that a little bit, but usually Lori works with the superintendent and the people in the superintendent's office to create a budget. And then the superintendent and the business manager meet with the executive group, the chair, the vice chair, and the clerk, and we review it and go through it and just to look at it, and if we notice anything that we would want more information on, so that we can try to have everybody as prepared as possible to review the budget. Over the last few years, the budget's grown a lot, and some people have commented on that. And I just want to bring to people's attention that we've put more and more on the central office and on the business office and on the MTSS budget. If everybody remembers, a few years ago, we added a facilities and transportation manager. We've added some extra human resource people. I think it was last year, and Lori will speak to it. This year, we had to change the way we did the technology. And a lot of that stuff took items out of our individual school budgets. So some of us all had a technology line item in our budget. Now we don't. Now it's in the central office budget. The facilities person in transportation, I just thank God we have them because the PCBs, during COVID, the air exchangers, all that stuff, I couldn't imagine asking our administrators to handle that. And probably Bob, as a former administrator, is tickled that he didn't have to deal with it. We used to joke in West River that the most important thing our administrators had to know was sewage and water, because those are the two things that always went down just before school started. So there's a lot of good with those positions. Also, Dan and I were talking the other day a little bit about how, not that many years ago, we used to do our own, our town treasurers did our own budgets and did the payroll and made all the payables, and that's something that we've pushed on to the central office in our changes. And then with the MTSS, there's been several requests made over the years to look at doing that, instead of having that come out as an individual district budget, to do something SU-wide, so it would kind of spread the ups and downs out a little bit more, because a lot of schools would have a few families move in and their budget would go up, or families would move in and the budget would go down, and there was always movement back and forth. So we were trying to make it so that it was more consistent and it weren't ups and downs. So, one year you had to increase your budget by $1 million, and the next year you could reduce it by $1.2 million, and it just made it really difficult. So right now, everybody has no special ed in their budget or no MTSS, because that's all at the central office. And, again, that's still just one director there too. We've always had a director of that program, but I think it's doing really well. So as Lori goes through that, remember, some of these numbers, may look a little high, but our administrator to direct service percentage is way down. It's in a little over 10 to 12%, depending on which budget you're looking at, and that's pretty good, because I've seen some districts that it's up over 25%. So I really want to commend central office. I know this is Bob's first year, but we know Lori and Bill in the past have come in and said, okay, we have a full-time HR person, we don't need that anymore. We're going to cut that back to a half, and we're going to do another half time for payables. And then maybe a couple years later, he said, okay, now we're getting a lot more HR stuff, so we need to bump the HR person, but we've covered some other stuff, or the grants aren't as bad as they used to be. So I really like to commend central office for being able to move and to be able to shift and to be able to look after our money the best we can. So Lori and Heidi, you did a great job for us, and you've done a great job in the past. We appreciate it. And Bob, good leadership.
Just shut up.
No, the important thing is you didn't come in and decide to change everything.
That's true. I know it's good. Leave them alone.
So if we could, we're gonna go through these one at a time, please, folks. So we always start with the superintendent's budget, we'll go to the MTSS, we'll go to early ed, and then we're gonna go to the old agency fee one, and we've got to change. Go ahead, Dan.
So, Rich, I have a request because Rachel Boyden is a relatively new board member. She was on a board once years ago, but is new at this. She's the vice chair. She will be presumed chair when I am no longer on this board. And so my request is for you, Lori, just take your time with this because, those of us who have seen them 100 times could whip through it, but get the new people on board and familiar with MTSS, et cetera. So that's my request. Don't rush through it because the more we familiarize another group of people with it, the easier it will be for them to take over when it's their baby. Right, Rich?
No, it's a good point, Dan, thank you. And we do have a lot of new board members compared to normal, so thank you for that. Everybody okay to let Lori start going on the first budget? Okay, so the superintendent's budget. How's Bob doing, Lori?
Great. All right, so your packet includes a table of contents, the voting members, and then we'll go to page 1, which is the full budget narrative. So I'll just read through this and then we can talk about the superintendent's budget only and talk about the changes that have happened. So overall, the superintendent's expenses are up 21.28% and revenues are down. And this is due to the increase in federal indirect funding with the sunsetting of ESSER funds. So this is somewhat expected in all of our budgets. We'll hear this theme again. The technology part, as Rich pointed out before, that part of the budget is up 26.42%. And that's due to the change in the director model. We had a contracted service before and we really needed to change that model. And he also retired. So that was a prime reason why we changed the model. Also requesting an addition of 1.0 data technician staff. We are really inundated with requests from the AOE for data collection, really on a monthly basis. And also we have several new software products that we're using that really require somebody that can really dive in and have a deep knowledge of how to use those products to the best of our ability. I can speak from the e-finance standpoint of we really haven't had any technology support. And I know there's ways that we can use the product in a better way, and it's just beyond my capabilities to do. So this would help all of us with different software products as well.
And Laura, just to add to that too, I think the other piece of this is when some of that data collection from the state helps drive funding, it's really important to do it well. And so part of this is ensuring that we're doing it well so we can get maximum efficiency from the state funding.
Right, we're in the middle of our census collection right now, and every student is dollar signs to me. I'm sorry, but they are. And I've been driving Bob crazy because we need to get those students counted. So there's also some software and hardware increases as well. A lot of that is either due to new software products and then the hardware inflationary factors that we're seeing as well. So for the superintendent's budget, I am recommending that we use $95,000 of fund balance to offset some of the increases for the business office transition. And I guess, we should probably talk about that a little bit for the people that haven't been on here. So I'm retiring as of the end of December 2024. And with that, we want to make sure that the districts we have a great team and we really we're ahead of the curve on a lot of things. So we don't want to lose momentum, and I really feel that the best strategy going forward is to have some overlap. So we would look to hire somebody in July, and there would be a 6-month overlap, which is roughly about $95,000. So it's a good use of fund balance because it's a one-time investment in making sure this transition goes smoothly for the next 15 years, 20 years. How long do you want?
I asked for 10, you wouldn't give it to
I wouldn't
us.
give it to you, but maybe the next person will. So I have included that $95,000 in this budget. So what you're seeing represents that as well. So if you turn to the Appendix A, I'll go over this now too. So this is our fund balance grid and chart. And as you can see, the fiscal year 23 ending fund balance for the superintendent's office, that's what we're talking about right now, is $420,000. I will tell you that the year over year, we had $107,000 gain in 23. This year, we probably are, because a lot of these changes are starting to happen now, we will be in a deficit situation, but we'll still come out at net ahead. Probably pretty close to 107, but right around there. So we're really looking at the 313 if you look at the fiscal year 23 in the beginning column there. So that it would be 95,000 less than that, but still giving us a good fund balance to draw on if anything else were to happen. So let me talk about the, keeping in mind that there's some new members out there, let me talk about the superintendent and the methodology of how we split costs. I think that's an important thing for people to understand. Page 3 just has the, basically just the summary view of the superintendent's budget. And then there's the detailed budget, and I'm entertain any questions that, if anybody's had a chance to look at that. But at the end of that, on page 5 and 6, is everybody with me on page 5 and 6? Yeah? Okay. So how and it's called the assessment, right, which is really just the SU assessment equals prorated expenses minus any offsetting revenues that are assessed to each individual district by an agreed upon methodology. So it's typically average daily membership or enrollment numbers, all of those can be used. Last year, the board voted to use a 2-year average, which is what the state actually uses to start the weighting. So we've really wanted to tie it to that. So I will tell you that these numbers here, and if you have it in color, they're grayed or they're red. They're the same as last year because we just don't have those numbers yet. But they have been similar throughout the years, and I think, Rich, you mentioned that to look at, a 5-year timeline of, how those 2-year rolling averages have increased and decreased so that the boards can see, how they've not really been too dramatic. So the superintendent's part, which is the superintendent's office and the business office, are split by this 2-year ADM. The technology is more mixed, and it's really, you're paying for service. So all of you have somebody that comes to your building and looks, takes care of your technology needs, works with students, works with your staff, really more of a direct service. So part of that assessment is that, and then the software, the hardware, the director, all of that is by ADM. Does everybody understand that? Nodding, I see nodding. Rachel, how about you?
Good.
You're good? Okay. All right. So that's the superintendent's budget. Any questions? I feel like I'm really yelling. You guys feel like I'm yelling?
Yeah, because you're trying to get everybody at home.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay if I talk normal?
Do you want us to move a mic by here?
No, I don't really. Just
So
feeling.
why don't you go through the numbers, because I think that's important for people. So
Good.
if you were to approve the superintendent's
Oh, yes.
budget, you would need to approve an expenditure in the amount of,
$2,202,692.
and go ahead, which page is the breakdown of that?
Page 5. So that is the expenditure budget, and that is what you're always approving. Even in your own districts, you're always approving the expenditures. It may not be what you are assessed, because we do have some of those offsetting revenues, but as a board, you're saying, oh, it's okay to spend that much money.
And we also approve the movement of money from the reserves to offset expenses. So if you approve this budget as presented, you just remember you're approving $95,000 to move in from the reserve into the operational for the superintendent's office, and that's important because that makes a difference when you get your assessment.
Correct.
So is there any questions about the superintendent's budget? Does anybody think Bob needs a lot more money and we should increase it?
Double it.
He probably feels that way after the first 3 months.
Sorry, Bob, I don't see anybody jumping on that. There's no questions? Is there any comments? Is there any thoughts?
Yeah, maybe you would break down, it is broken down on page 6, the various assessments to the districts, but Lori, I think you were about to go into that. We understand the methodology, but just talk a little bit about those numbers.
Oh,
Each district, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you muted at the end there. So there's an appendix that has the summary of assessments at the end. I think it's Appendix C. And that's actually, I did that because it's much easier to look at than some of these little, I leave all my work in there because I want you to understand that I tie out the numbers. But the summary is a better thing to look at for the assessments and how it affects you. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, that's fine, and just wait till we get to that. That's fine, Lori, thanks.
Yeah, yep. I do want to mention, because we don't have the correct numbers yet, that assessment summary sheet actually could change. Again, you're voting on that $2.2 million, and it will be assessed out based on our new fiscal year 25 2-year average. We just don't have those numbers yet. And I don't think they're going to change dramatically, because we're seeing drops in student counts across the board in our district, so.
Historically, the last several years, we haven't seen
Right.
big changes from what we looked at budgeting time.
Correct.
So we do try to go through these and go through one budget at a time, because it gets a little confusing when we bounce around. So if there aren't a lot of questions, would somebody like to make a motion on the superintendent's budget?
I'll move to approve the superintendent's budget as presented.
In the amount of,
It's on the big summary sheet.
$2,202,692.
and moving 95, and also.
That's part of it, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the superintendent's budget of $2,202,692, including moving some money from the reserve. Do I have a second to that motion? I'll get to you in 1 second, sir. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Emily seconds it, so we're open for discussion, and I can't see who's.
Doug.
Doug, go ahead, sir. Where is he?
Sorry, I have to unmute. Totally forgot. Just a quick procedural question for Lori. So I know we have the general fund and we're kind of building that up. And that's a great strategy, but how come supervisory unions can do that, but districts cannot? I mean, how come we can't start storing money away so that when dangerous things happen, we can't do that for our district?
Yeah.
Well, you can, it's just, what you've done in Marlboro the last couple of years, which is smart, is to put a motion or a article on your ballot to move any surpluses into the capital, because that protects it. If it's just left in your general fund, then by law it's supposed to go back to the taxpayers the next year. So that's how we actually build a savings account in your capital fund, is by having the voters say yes, move the money, any surpluses, into the capital fund, and that protects it there.
Okay, so it's not a state policy technically, it's more of just the voters have to be aware and condone it.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And Doug, we've been doing it for over 20 years. That's how we built, both Wardsboro and Dover built their nest eggs to help with that, fluctuating money from the state and expenses. Being smaller schools like we are, it's a little tougher than a school like something up in Chittenden County with 1,000 students.
Gotcha, thanks.
And we actually, the supervisory union used to only keep about $10,000, and we never could get really into reserve. And then when Lori started, we're starting to be able to. We kind of did the same thing. We started putting money away, and then the ESSER funds really helped, give us a boost. And we didn't. Some districts used them all the first year or as soon as they got them, but Lori did give us a plan a few years ago. We voted on to reserve some of the ESSER funds in both in the superintendent's area in the MTSS area, so that we could use that, because we knew they were going to dry up eventually, but the need's not going to dry up.
That's exactly right.
Well, and that was a really good recommendation. It was a great conversation. So we have a motion and I have a second. Do I have any other comments? Thank you, Doug. Hearing none, is everybody ready to vote? Remember, the only people that vote are those appointed to be representatives. I think you all know who you are. So you can't vote, Lori.
No, and it's here too.
Okay,
You need to know.
so the motion is to approve $2,202,692 for the FY25 superintendent's budget, and to move money from the reserve to help offset assessments. All those in favor, please signify so by saying aye.
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 Thank you, Sarah. Yep, I got you, Allison. Thumbs up. Are there any nays? Please signify so by saying nay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, it appears as though the motion passed unanimously in the affirmative. The motion did pass unanimously in the affirmative. Congratulations, Bob. You got your first superintendent's budget through.
Well, thank you, Lori.
All right.
Okay, so MTSS, multi-tiered
Systems of support.
There you go.
Getting it, there. Okay, so this is a big part of your budgets as well, because it is passed through, of course, and it represents an increase this year of about 3.01%. But we expected revenues to decrease with the drop off of ESSER, and then there also the census block grant, which is part of Act 173. Is being reduced every year. I think it's next year. I was going to look this up and I forgot. I think it's next year that it levels out. So we've seen 3-4 years of reductions in that grant, which is what we were planning for. So this wasn't a surprise. We used $400,000 of fund balance for the current year we're in. That's what we voted on last year. I'm recommending using $800,000 with ARP ESSER going away. And we can turn to that fund balance report on the appendix, just to take a look at it. Just to, put your mind at ease, 800,000 sounds like a lot of money, but, we have $2.3 million in reserves there right now. And we're not sure where we'll come out this year. We're running ahead of budget, which is expected because this year we're still supplanting some money from ESSER. So we expect to end in the black. I just don't have an idea quite yet of where we're going to be. Probably mid-year I'll have a better sense of that. So that puts your mind at ease that 800,000 is in the bank and ready to be used to reduce your assessment down a little bit. You still don't want to use a lot of the reserves because you really do need to allow your these budgets to go up a little bit at a time because otherwise you're just going to have a cliff at the end. So, I'm projecting out another 2.5, maybe 3 years that you'll be able to use this to smooth your way into, not having any reserves or little reserves.
And the other thing is if the state recalibrates and they look at our expenditures, what we're getting from them, that could have an effect on us too. I mean, that was part of Act 60, said you're going to go up so high anyways, and it was advantageous for some schools to budget up to that top number even though they didn't need it and be able to keep it as reserves. So I think that's, you're using about 30%, about a third, so that makes a lot of sense, and then that allows us next year to reevaluate. Plus, we'll also know exactly where we stood at the end of the year.
Right.
And there may be that we did too much and we can put some more money back in, put some money back into the reserve that we could use again. So I think that's a great idea. I really appreciate that.
So we turn to page, we're going to get there. Page 8. Before I talk about the budget itself, I think it would be great, especially for the new members, to hear from our experts on what MTSS is and how Windham Central is implementing it in our SU. So that would be, take it away, Stephanie and Jen.
I was going to say, Jen, do you want to kick it off? And I'll dang it. I thought you were going to say that. So the multi-tiered system of support, that's what MTSS stands for, is an approach to supporting all students when they need support instead of waiting for them to get to a failing kind of level. And so we used the local comprehensive assessment system to determine where students are at with literacy and math at this point. That may expand over time. And any student who is scoring in an at-risk percentile level is picked up for further screening to see if there's something further that needs to be done, if intervention needs to be provided. And then Jen and I coordinate together on, what is needed for those particular students. And it's Jen can speak much better to the academic support team side of things, and then I lean into more of the special education side of things. However, the whole point of the multi-tiered system of support is to break down the silos and work together in a coordinated way to meet students' needs as quickly as possible. Jen, I probably didn't do it great justice, but do you want to chime in and then I'll pop back in for special ed?
Sure, you did great, Steph. I think Stephanie talked about the local comprehensive assessment system, which is the LCAS. So really what we started this, I think it's 5 or 6 years ago. I get a little like COVID, was that a year or not? But we started the academic support team in all of you supported this becoming an SU-wide program. So the academic support teachers work together. There's 8.5 FTE, 9.5 when you count me, that we work to support our schools with direct intervention to students, with coaching to teachers, and then by providing professional development for the entire SU. So in the past few years, we've been able to really build the expertise of that team, and that team has then And Stephanie weigh in on her parts of how special ed is part of this as well. But the academic support team has worked on skill building. So we're taking students who, doesn't matter what their identification is. It doesn't matter if it's a short-term fix or a long-term. It could be a 6-week fix or it could be a 2-year fix, to get the gaps filled in for students. So we're really working to catch students, using data to catch students' academic skills, to catch them where they are and meet them where they are and give them what they need, in a skill-based way, rather than like kind of the old model of sometimes homework help and things like that. But I think what the great thing that we've seen over the past few years, and talk to teachers, ask them questions, they will tell you that we've been able to have this expertise, share it out, share tools, and if we come up with it and it's working, we share it with everybody. And I think that's really building the base for reaching kids. So that's the focus. So, Steph, if you wanted to, so I would say academic support, we're a small part of the bigger picture of this, but I do see us all working together in that continuum for helping kids. So I do want to say this is the first time in 3 years that we've been fully staffed as academic support. We've had 3 years of not having everyone. We haven't added a position, I don't think, Lori, correct me, but in more than 3 years. I think 3 years ago we came to the full 8.5, and this is the first year we've been able to do that. And what's that?
To fill the positions, yes, right.
To fill the positions, right. And so the academic support team served 210 students last year, K to 8. And that's single kids. That's they might get math and literacy, but they count as one. So 210 students of our population were served by them last year. Steph, take it away.
I was going to say, and then we have another about 200 who, well, an average of 180 to 200 year over year of students who need special education level of instruction. And I think I just want to add that a lot of this work started with district management group doing a huge study in the state of Vermont, and our supervisory union was one of the districts or supervisory unions that participated in that. So a huge analysis was done on special education, like who was receiving services from what kind of provider, what were the needs, where were we relying on, certain kinds of staff. And so on page 8, you can see the guiding principles of MTSS development. That was based on district management groups' recommendations to our supervisory union and other supervisory unions throughout the state. And so that kind of was like one of the leading pieces. And then on top of that, the state of Vermont decided to change funding for special education that is known as Act 173. When that happened, they needed to open up the rules and regulations for special education. And that resulted in last year, as of July 1st, some rules and regulation changes. And then this year, some additional ones. And the beauty of the Act 173 is that it allows us to have the flexibility with funding. So that's why a lot of these budgets are blended in a way. And there's also students who are on IEPs receiving intervention from an academic support teacher, and some students who are receiving what we call targeted intervention that may typically be by either a teacher or academic support teacher that might be provided by a special educator. So we are making decisions within the systems to decide who is the most appropriate person to meet students' needs, and never before has that been permitted. So as much as Act 173 from a budgetary standpoint has been hard, it has also opened a lot of great doors for students. And I think that's the best part. The other part is that part of the rules and regulation changes required us to really look at research-based curriculum. So for universal instruction, so all students in the classroom, as well as targeted intervention and then intensive intervention. So we are making sure that everything we do is very science based and research backed. And that is definitely helping students close the gaps. And as Jen said, we're also trying to make sure that all of our staff are supporting teachers and, really looking at the big picture of what the whole system needs instead of our particular, former lanes. So that's kind of, I think the overarching viewpoint from the rules, the budgets, the acts that have occurred, and district management group. Did I miss anything, you guys, that you can think of that? we should explain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Lori, I don't know if I heard you say, but on your summary page, your narrative, it shows that there's a 3.1% increase in the MTSS budget, which I think is really good considering this is a lot of personnel. And, health insurance benefits went up 16%. I would have expected to see a lot higher increase just based on that because there's a lot of people. I understand with the decrease in revenues, it's bigger, but trying to hold a year-to-year budget, especially when inflation is at, 7 or 8%, depends who you talk to. I think that I'd like to thank Stephanie and Jen and you for really looking at this and making sure the numbers are tight.
Can I just say, because I don't want to lose this track after listening to Jen and Stephanie. I just want to say that we've been talking about this, what was just described, for so long. It feels like forever. Of course, I haven't been that long, but it's been forever. And, even leading up to when we first started working with district management group and all of that, our goals, we knew what our goals were. And I just want to say thank you so much to the leadership here at Windham Central, because what you two just described was just so overwhelming. I cannot believe, I'm so proud of what we've done here in Windham Central in this area. We are a model. I've said it before, but we really are a model. And you should all be really proud, and I'm really glad we've been able to support this movement, because this is about what our children need. And it is so gratifying to see that implemented over time like this. So thank you, all of you.
Add on that a little bit, I would say too, that it isn't just the supports for kids that's direct service that's involved with this. It's the professional learning that they've been able to provide for all the staff, which by the way is better in so many ways because it's locally done and it's people that they know provide the training, because then they're there to support it through coaching. And frankly, it's less expensive than bringing in outside people as well. So there's a double victory from that as well, from the professional learning side.
Which is exactly what I would expect you to say.
Yep.
So in regards to the MTSS budget, are there any specific questions? And the line items are in there. Sometimes they get a little confusing, but does anybody have questions on how it works?
Can I just add that also the equity coordinator that you approved to hire after the budget was passed last year is also in MTSS. So you're seeing that for the first time as well.
That's why I didn't say it under the superintendent's budget.
You didn't, you got it right.
Hey, Rich.
Yes.
Nothing about a line, but just, I know there's a good reason for this, but it's K through 22 as opposed to pre-K. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
remember
because we
why.
have the early, and that's our next budget.
Okay, got it.
And it's 22 because that's the law. We're
Right,
responsible
right.
to their 22nd birthday. Any questions from TV land? No, see some head shaking, no. Would somebody like to make a budget of like a $7,898,411 for the MTSS budget with a $800 transfer from fund balance to offset assessments? $800,000, right? That's what we discussed.
Yes.
7,898,411. It's a big number. 411.
I'll make that motion if anybody else wants to. This is Dan.
Thank you, Dan. So Dan moves to approve the MTSS budget in the amount of $7,898,411 and utilize $800,000 of fund balance to offset assessments. Do I have a second to that motion, please?
Second?
Well, second.
Okay, Al beat you to it, Kate, a little bit, sorry. So I'm gonna give it to Al. Is there any discussion on that? I know it's a big number, but if not, it's a good number?
Yeah.
Some year, Lori's gonna come in next year with all even numbers for us. She promised me.
People question those though.
So, hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify so by saying aye.
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 I got some thumbs up, thank you. If there's anybody opposed, please signify so by saying nay. Is there anybody abstaining? It appears as though it's a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is a unanimous decision in the affirmative, so we're gonna move on to the ECSE, Essential Childhood,
Early.
Early.
Early childhood.
there you go, Early Childhood Special Education? I don't know. Bob, I'm following your lead.
Special education, I'm going with it.
Come on,
Okay.
Stephanie, correct us all.
So the next budget is the ECSE, which you guys are all gonna be very happy, because according to
Yes.
her summary sheet, it's down 8.96%.
Yes, that is correct. And so just to give a little history, the boards decided, voted last year, I think it was last year, to share costs with this budget as well, so that it, again, you won't see those spikes. And, you know, when you have a ECSE student move in that needs, you know, a private tuition, so that happened in one district, so they came to the board and said, you know, we do it for special ed and for MTSS, can we do it for ECSE? And so it's, you all are sharing in that 8.69% decrease, so. Is there any questions on that budget?
Yeah, I see. Go ahead, Stephanie,
Stephanie
I'm
wanted to
sorry.
say something.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't put the actual hand, or I did the real hand.
No,
not the
I
fake
saw
hand.
your real hand.
All right, perfect. So I just wanted to say, one of the biggest things I wanted to add is just this can be subject to change, because early intervention does transitions with our early childhood special education team 3 to 6 months before a student turns 3 and is on a plan. So every now and then we either have somebody who moves in who we weren't aware of, or, you know, as they enter pre-K programs or different experiences, changes, you know, can be needed. So I just want to, you know, the safe side of me wanted to say it is subject to change, but this is what we anticipate at this time.
And I think, though, Stephanie, correct me and Lori if I'm wrong, I mean, you put together a budget based on your best knowledge of what's gonna happen starting July 1st of next year, running through June 30th of the following year. If you could predict the future with 100% certainty, we would all probably be playing the futures market with you and living large. So, I mean, I think people gotta understand that. And I think part of the thing that I think our staff does really well is just because it's in the budget doesn't mean we have to spend it. And, you know, we're gonna do the best we can with the bucks we have, and if there's extra money, it comes back to us that we can, it will go into the fund balance, and then we can decide how to use it the following year. So, and you guys have been pretty good. I mean, we've been really close the last few years, so I think y'all should pat yourselves on the back, because we can't, because you're not here, but I'll give you a. So.
Thank you.
Again, this number, we're not asking to move any fund balance on this one. The number is $302,499 for ECSE.
So moved.
So I'll move to expend $302,499 for ECSE. Do I have a second, Kate?
Kate will second.
There you go. I thought you'd have a chance with Al making the motion. So we have a motion by Al and a second by Kate. Is there any discussion? Seems kind of a letdown after the $8 million we just spent. Anybody, no discussion? All those in favor signify so by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify so by saying nay. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, it appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is a unanimous decision in the affirmative. $302,499 for ECSE. The next item is something in the past, many years ago, we used to put off. We would just review it. But the numbers have never changed, and there's a lot less in it now. And it used to be called the agency fund, and Lori calls it something else now.
Fee for service.
Fee for service. I like agency fund.
I know.
fee for service, but because Lori's leaving, I will try my best to remember that for next year. So the fee for service is.
Next year, we're gonna call it the Lori Garland Fund.
So the fee for service is items that individual schools don't have a full-time position, but they have a part-time. So it used to be years ago, it was pretty substantial. It was a good amount of money because some people had librarians in it, phys ed teachers, instrumental music. There was a lot of different items, but a lot of those items have since been moved to different areas. And with the combining of several schools, the school was able to hire a full-time person or hire their own part-time person. So those numbers are way down. So this is an item, although we all get to vote on it, it's actually just billed to those that participate in it, which is, I think every school has something that they use, except for West River.
No, West River does. Stratton is probably the only one that has nothing in this budget.
But she still gets to vote.
She does.
So there you go.
Allison, don't go away. You get to vote.
Or we'll lose
I'm
our
right
farm.
here, I'm right here.
So in it, and that's section, go ahead, Lori.
Yep.
Take it away.
That is starting on page 22. So a lot of these things actually could be put into the local budgets now, like the ELL teacher is split between West River and River Valleys. PE, the reason that position is still in this budget is because it affects 3 different districts, so easier to do through Windham Central. Guidance is just West River because it's split, but the person is paid out of Windham Central, so these are the types of things that would go in here. So then there's the PD, and that only affects Windham Central and West River as part of their negotiated agreement. It's the pool of money there, $75,000. The technology services, we moved to the superintendents because it's really a core operational department. And then the local, we used to have Peter Barris, I think his name was, that did all the minutes for all the districts, and he retired. So I think all the districts have their own minute taker now, so they're paid just locally, so that came out. Transportation, which does affect River Valleys for Wardsboro and West River. And then the food service operations, which is really the compliance piece for all of your child nutrition programs in your schools. So that is something we get monitored. We had 3 monitorings last year from the AOE, or from the child nutrition program, and we've already had 1 this year. So it employs somebody almost full time. That is the fee-for-service budget, and it is.
I got it.
You got it?
995,402.
Yeah.
$995,402, and it's actually down $7,000.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah.
So, are there any questions? We used to put this off, but really no schools have had budgets turned down. That was the concern that was expressed by a district many years ago, because they had trouble getting their budget passed, and if we voted on it now, it would lock those positions in. But again, there's so little, there used to be, I don't know, like 30 or 40 people involved.
Yeah.
Now it's a lot less. So Lori suggested, and at least Emily and Al and I agreed when we talked about it, that we should bring it forward. But go ahead, Dan, is that you?
Yeah, it is. Lori, I'm sorry. I'm looking at this sheet. I can't see the breakdown of the various districts. I see some much lower numbers, but they don't add up to anything like $1 million. Down at the bottom of page 24.
Yes.
Yeah, so I see numbers there, but why am I not seeing the right numbers here?
Off to the side, in columns K, L, M, and N, that's where the breakdown is. It's because it's program specific. So it's not at the bottom of the sheet. Do you not have?
Well, I see what you're saying is it looks like the number adds up to something different. It looks like it adds up to 719.
719. Or nice. Oh, that's the ADM, the
Oh,
719.
Okay.
I got you. Okay, those aren't numbers. Those are ADM, not dollars.
Right, those are counts. That's how we're splitting the
That's how you
cost.
figure out what.
Yeah, that's the,
Right.
basically the assessment.
Do you have what each district would pay on just this budget on the fee for service?
Yes, on the summary.
Okay. Oh, that takes it back there.
I'm always jumping the gun, sorry.
Where's the summary again?
It is Appendix C.
Thank you. Where's appendix D?
Yes, we're talking about this.
Okay, appendix C has the amount for all of them. I believe the fee for service won't change because that's not affected by ADM. That's just the district's agreeing to pay it.
Only the food service operation might change slightly, but other than that.
Dan, did you
you're
get that
correct.
okay? Can you find that?
Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, so I'm sorry. So in order to keep with your protocol, Rich, we should go back to approving that fee for service budget before jumping on down. So I see the numbers now. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so are there any other questions, or would somebody like to make a motion to approve a fee for service budget, our fourth one tonight, for $995,402?
I bet Katie does.
You moved it?
No, I said I bet Kate does.
Oh, Kate, you want to move it?
I would love to move it, so
Okay, so Kate made a motion to approve $995,402 for the fee for service budget, formerly known as, do I have a second?
Sure.
Okay, Joe seconds it here.
It's like waiting for somebody else.
Do we have, is there any discussion?
But he's over here. Oh, you want to in a second? I'll take it.
Okay, hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm not sure if Kate's voting or her child. Any opposed, please say nay. And any abstentions? It appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is, we approve $995,402 for fee for service, Lori.
Great.
So that ends all our budgeting stuff. So one of the things, Lori, I'd like to talk real quick about, so Dan, this is what we discussed at the executive committee the other day. One of the things that, like Lori said, is when you look at the numbers, especially for the superintendents and the MTSS budgets, those can vary a little bit depending on the ADM. So we have to report ADM to the Department of Education, and by December 15th, they're supposed to get back to us to tell us what our 2-year ADM is. But what happens is a lot of times they ask for extensions, and a lot of times there's changes. I know Lori was into the spring one year for River Valleys because the numbers didn't look right to her, and we kept having to go back to them.
Some things don't change.
So one of the things we thought about, and I asked Lori for the next meeting, we thought, because we didn't warn it this time, but I just want people to start thinking about it, is the possibility of us using the current years when we vote on the budget, and we have to vote on the budget late November, early December, because some school districts in the Windham Central vote earlier, and they need those numbers to put into their budgets. That we would use the current one, so we would use the one that we have established now to create the next year's budget, so that number wouldn't change. So we would always be a year behind. So sometime in December, early January, the Department of Ed would give us new numbers. We wouldn't use those. We would use those the following year in November. And it's a little confusing. We'll have a little bit better chart for you folks. But just kind of keep that in the back of your mind so that when you actually vote, remembering that we only vote the assessment, we don't vote, we only vote the budget, we don't vote on assessments. Assessments are created. We will know what our vote really means in dollars and cents, and it shouldn't change, or it won't change. So I think that's it on budgets. Is there anything else we need to do? other than thank Lori, Heidi, Bob, and Jen and everybody. Oh. Okay, I think, folks, that's really good. We got some policy updates.
So we had handed out the policies at the retreat, and just, we put it on here because we weren't sure if you guys wanted to start to have any questions or any conversations about those. We didn't know what your timeline for warning and adopting were, but these are the result of the policy audit that I conducted in September, October, and I discovered that even, and Allison was part of this too for non-operating districts, and even SUs who don't operate buildings per se, that the required policies are still required policies. And legal advice from Pietro was to adopt ones even if they don't appear to have a purpose for you and what your particular endeavor is, either in SU or non-operating, because they're required by law. That way you're in compliance with law. So the RSU did not have a lot of the required ones adopted, and so I provided that pile basically of all the ones that would need to be adopted in order to be compliant. But there's no rush. We haven't had them for years, is my guess. So yeah. So I mean, or maybe they were adopted, but they're not. We can't find them. Like, who knows? So rather than just going through searching minutes for a dozen years back, we just figured we would bring them forward because some of them are new versions anyways. They're all based on the VSBA models, so we can. I know the SU board doesn't have a policy committee per se, right?
Well, we're supposed to.
Are you supposed to?
Yeah, we actually were supposed to, when we reorganize each board, each group appoint a person to the policy committee. I think Al and Joe are fighting over who it was for West River.
No, we agree on who it was.
You know who.
It's not really a committee right now.
Yeah, so Dan, do you know who your policy person is?
Yes, it's Doug. He was here earlier. I see he's left. He anticipated this conversation, but he does know that. Yeah.
Okay.
So just for my clarification, is it a member of the SU board who serves from that board?
No, it's a member
It's
of
any-
the board, yeah.
So Doug's not an SU board member, but he can still serve on the policy
Right, because
committee?
he can still make recommendations, he
Gotcha,
just
okay.
won't be able to vote.
Yep.
Allison, is it you?
That was the last policy committee member, yes.
Yes. Okay, and West River is
It's Peter Broussard.
Peter? Oh.
Are you appointing him?
No, he was.
Okay,
Yeah,
and,
he was interested. Yeah.
and,
He doesn't know what he's
we have
getting into.
somebody, you said from Windham?
Yep, Rory is here from Windham.
Rory, do you know who from Windham, is she on the Windham board?
Yep.
Do you know who, I'm sorry, do you know who your policy person is?
No, I do not believe that I don't think that we have a specific policy person.
Yeah, they had to reorganize this summer because they had a new chair, and so in fact, they still need to elect a second or nominate a second person to be on the SU board. Rory is the vice chair, but so yeah, maybe at our next meeting, Rory, we can add that to the agenda of selecting a policy person and getting a second SU rep.
Yeah, please, it would be helpful. Sometimes we are waiting for a rep and then we have to go quick because they have to leave early to have votes at the WCSU. It's been a lot better since we reorganized. And then Kate, I think it was you from us, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so Bob, why don't, as soon as Windham gets their person together, why don't we warn a meeting and let me know and I'll be part of it too.
Okay.
And then we'll get together and we'll get these. There's 22 or 23 policies that Bob gave us. I just counted them. Some are 1 pages and some are more pages than the budget was. So some of them may take a little longer, but maybe we can blow through some of the easy ones.
Yep.
And then we'll start bringing them to the next meetings.
Okay, so their next meeting is the 28th, the end of the month, so if we put that on that agenda, then early December I can start to schedule something. Yep.
So these aren't warned or anything like that,
Correct.
so we could add to them if.
Correct.
Because I've been researching investment policies, right? So that so that I can
Yeah.
do something.
You can give them to the committee.
Okay.
And then when the committee is agreeable to them, then at the next WCSU meeting, whatever they have, we'll bring forward.
Okay.
We'll warn them, we'll vote on them for posting and warning. Then they have to be posted, so the next meeting, we actually adopt them.
There was one, was it River Valley's that already has one?
No, Windham Central has one, but it's
Right.
very
It
old.
needs to get
and-
updated.
And it doesn't,
Okay.
it refers to some things that aren't
And
even.
there's also financial control policy, I think we voted on one time you brought to us. when you came to us as
There are
manager.
some grant-funded things that we needed certain policies for that you probably already have that are already adopted.
Maybe you're not gonna take a peek once.
Okay.
So we'll do that. Now, we show our next meeting is November 29th, and that was like a placeholder. Some years, the budgets have been a little bit more difficult, and we've needed 2 or 3 meetings to get everything in line, but we don't need to meet again, so we'll give everybody after Thanksgiving off. And I think we don't have anything coming up, and maybe in January, Bob,
We have a schedule.
There's a schedule, so the next one, if we're not doing budget ones, looks like January 24th would be the full board.
Okay, so January 24th, hopefully the policy committee can bring some policies forward, and we'll also have a discussion about using the current ADM for the budgeting so that we'll have real numbers. So if you can make sure you get that on there. And Meredith, if you can record that in the minutes, those 2 items for us,
Past year ADM.
so we have that. Is there any other items, anything else to come before the group, before we hear the most magical motion that Al's gonna make tonight? Hearing none, seeing no hands raised and nobody yelling.
Motion to adjourn?
Al moves to adjourn. Is there a second?
Emily will second.
All those in favor say adjourn.
Adjourn.
Anybody that
you
wants to
all.
stay and visit with Lori, say Lori.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thank you.